Okay, page 56. We are in episode 19. We have just finished the celebration. The Danes, the Danes are sleeping. And the narrator has left 18 telling us that they have all their war gear around them and that they are good soldiers and they're doing what is right, but it seems as if it is kind of pointless because there is something that's going to happen that is they will be unable to defend themselves. So they sank into sleep. The price of that evening's rest was too high for the Dane who bought it with his life, paying as others had paid when Grendel inhabited Heorot. The hall, his till his crimes pulled him into hell. And now it was known that a monster had died, but a monster still lived, and meant revenge. She brooded on her loss. Misery had brewed in her heart that female horror, Grendel's mother, living in the murky, cold lake assigned her since Cain had killed his only brother, slain his father's son with an angry sword. God drove him off, outlawed him to the dry and barren desert, and branded him with a murderer's mark. And he bore a race of fiends accursed like their father. So Grendel was drawn to Heorot, an outcast come to meet the man who awaited him. He snatched at Beowulf's arm, but that prince remembered God's grace and the strength he'd given him, and relied on the Lord for all the help, the comfort and support he would need. He killed the monster, as God had meant him to do, tore the fiend apart, and forced him to run as rapidly as he could toward death's cold waiting hands. His mother's sad heart, in her greed, drove her from her den on the dangerous pathway of revenge. So, the Danes are asleep in Heorot. We reveal that there is a monster that still lives. The monster is Grendel's mother. She never has a name. Her name is Grendel's mom, Grendel's mother. She lives in coldness, and she is waiting, seeking revenge for the death of her son. She is also a descendant of Cain, obviously. It's Grendel's mother. Then there is the retelling of the battle between Grendel and Beowulf, and this is to remind the listener of what has happened, in case someone has come in late, in case they haven't been paying attention. Most importantly, Grendel returned to his home and died there with his mother. She watched her son die. Any mother would want revenge if something happened to their child, but seeing that kind of pain and torment, especially with a death that was so painful and agonizing as Grendel's was, as we can only assume, she completely wants revenge. So she reached Heorot, where the Danes slept as though already dead. Her visit ended their good fortune, reversed the bright vein of their luck. No female, no matter how fierce, could have come with a man's strength, fought with the power and courage men fight with, smashing their shining swords, their bloody hammer-forged blades, onto boar-headed helmets, slashing and stabbing with the sharpest of points. The soldiers raised their shields and drew those gleaming swords, swung them above the piled-up benches, leaving their mail shirts and their helmets where they'd lain when the terror took hold of them. To save her life, she moved still faster, took a single victim, and fled from the hall, running to the moors, discovered, but her supper assured, sheltered in her dripping claws. She'd taken Hrothgar's closest friend, the man he most loved of all the earth. She killed a glorious soldier, cut a noble life short. No Geat could have stopped her. Beowulf and his band had been given better beds. Sleep had come to them in a different hall. Then all Heorot burst into shouts. She had carried off Grendel's claw. Sorrow had returned to Denmark. They'd traded deaths, Danes and monsters, and no one had won. Both had lost. So her heart is sad, and she is greedy. She wants to fight back. She wants to get revenge. There is a simile there that says that the soldiers slept as if they were already dead. The description is that she fought like a male, even though she was a female. She was that strong. The men try to fight back. They swing swords and swing weapons, but nothing works. She flees, as she actually fears the men, much like Grendel feared God. But she takes one man, and we learn in the next episode that that man's name is Escher. He is Hrothgar's favorite soldier. He is his friend. He is his number-one advisor. Only the Danes were in that hall. The Geats, because they had been successful, had been given better beds, and they actually weren't sleeping in Heorot. So even though they weren't there, the narrator, the poet says, no Geat could have stopped her at that point either. So let's pick up again on the bottom of page 57. The wise old king trembled in anger and grief, his dearest friend and adviser dead. Beowulf was sent for at once. A messenger went swiftly to his rooms and brought him. He came, his band about him, as dawn was breaking through. The best of all warriors, walking to where Hrothgar sat waiting, the gray-haired king, wondering if God would ever end this misery. The Geats tramped quickly through the hall. Their steps beat and echoed in the silence. Beowulf rehearsed the words he would want with Hrothgar. He'd ask the Danes' great lord if all were at peace, if the night had passed quickly. So we end that episode with Hrothgar admitting his fear again, worries that his kingdom is cursed, that God will never end their misery. Beowulf, and you can almost see Beowulf realizing what has happened and then almost rehearsing what he's going to say to Hrothgar. Is everything okay? We have a good night? When in reality he knows what has happened. Beowulf feels guilty. Okay? This, picturing him pacing, is understanding that he feels like this is his fault. Okay? He feels guilty for a number of reasons. Hrothgar considers Beowulf a son. He feels like he let him down. Beowulf inadvertently caused this because he's the one who killed Grendel. They celebrated the death, but there's still more death to come. Beowulf is the only one who can actually defeat the mother. He's, again, their only choice. And it's his responsibility. He's seen as a messenger of God. You can't get out of that. Okay? He has to defeat this monster in order for him to live up to what he's already done and to live up his legacy that he's trying to build for himself.